Hey all. So I've got a shorter one for you today here with this war against space bastards. We've faced them several times before, usually a moderately close war, one side or the other. And so we were on our guard here. But funnily enough, when we had paths pretty much all lined up, it turned out that I had basically one spot left on my team, and I needed to take an I Hulk and a Mr. Negative. Now, you might have seen me take this I Hulk both on this node and on the node right after this, where I've said before I think he's more dangerous, with Killmonger. But the thing is that Masacre is actually my favorite counter to Mr. Negative. You see a lot of people using Nick against him because of the disorient on Nick's Special 1, and that's an excellent counter. Additionally, there are a lot of people with rank 3 Nicks, and between that and his second life, he's an extremely safe option that's easy to fit onto teams because you see him used a lot elsewhere anyway. However, Nick's Disorient is 8 seconds long, and Massacre's is actually 12 seconds long, a full 50% longer. And since I just recently took my Massacre to rank 3, on the backs of missing Jabari and Shang-Chi yet again, I figured this was the perfect chance to bring him to war and just take him for a test drive. Because the reason that I use Killmonger against I-Hulk is mainly not just because of his tankiness, but also because he has reliable access to bleed, and he really limits how much gamma I-Hulk gains. But Massacre has access to both bleed and incinerate, and so their odds are pretty good that he'll get I-Hulk down before he accumulates 15 gamma, and therefore he won't be able to heal at all, just removing that part of the fight from the equation. For anyone who's not familiar with Massacre, he's fairly simple. The basic idea is that you want to either land crits or hit into the enemy's block and build up 10 of those ignition charges. After that, all of your bat hits, which are most of the hits in his combo, will land incinerates. You can refresh the incinerates with the special one, which we're going to be using anyway, both because of this strike counter node and just later because of the disorient that it implies. So you'll see me going for those blocked hits right away. There is one other thing here. There it is. Eat a full combo right out of the gate. I had somebody ask recently, how do you guys, he was asking me and a couple other veteran players, he was like, how do you even know that there are issues with Dex and parry right now? How can you be so sure that you're not just messing up? And a friend of mine responded, I think rather succinctly, because I've been playing this game for 6 years. And the way I see it, there are some where I know it was my fault, there are a number where it's on the line, and then the reason that we've been making these comments about parry and Dex not being great is that there are others where we're sure that that was the right timing and it still didn't go well. That was one of those. But as you can see, after that, I just played the node and basically, I think I lost 1% health left for the rest of the fight, and it was over so quickly that I barely got to talk about it after taking a bit of a detour there. I really don't think there's much to say though. That fight is perfect if you stay on top of your combos and your counters, and if you put the opponent over a bar of power, as I did once or twice, before you are ready to throw your special cleanly, then all you have to do, usually, is block and be ready to step back or sidestep into throwing that special. And you saw me do that a few times. Super easy. So with this Maw fight here, I have said many times before, this is the more dangerous of the two nodes because it does not just give you the special one from hitting the opponent. You actually have to earn your own, so to speak. Now, having Reed on the team gives us a significant advantage there because we will gain some power at the beginning. However, while Maw is trying to focus, he actually reduces that, so it's not as big an advantage as it would be against somebody else on this node. Now, Torch is famous against Maw because Maw is a mystic and Torch can turn off miss. So he kind of gets rid of the most dangerous things. But I actually also like that the specifics of his heavy animation allows him to heavy counter Maw pretty safely. And if you miss, like just there, then you have time to recover. So you'll notice I did take some brute force damage. That is why Maw is difficult here. If he decides to just throw medium mediums, medium heavies, against some champions it can be difficult to hit him often enough to avoid that brute force. Now, I'm actually intentionally eating brute force damage there because I still had the Fury on me that he placed with his last L1. I didn't want to push him over a bar while I still had that Fury so that he could throw his special, as he often does even if you're blocking, nullify the Fury, and put a much larger degen on me than brute force, and one that I couldn't get rid of just by hitting him. So, Torch, as usual, an excellent counter, but there are a couple of extra things to think about on that node. Because also it is power focus, so Maw is more likely to degen you there. Very good placement. But moving on. So this is not a new fight for me. I've taken this Mysterio a couple times this season. It seems to be a very popular placement, but maybe that'll change when people realize just how easy this particular counter is. As I've mentioned before, basically the only tricky thing about this is if for some reason, well, for one thing, if you do that and forget that Limber exists, that was not smart. But if for some reason you aren't able to refresh those debuffs with a heavy, and then he throws his special one, and you're starting to look at the expiration on them, while he has one of his problematic gases up. Now, that is why I bait the special one here. Part of it is also to stack the Careful Study passive, because that's more fun when you just have more power gain. But the other reason is because with him running max Limber, as he should be, if I pushed Mysterio to the special 2, and he had a chance to miss, and then I parried and went for that heavy and it missed, then I could get punished and end up eating a full combo. As opposed to, if I feel that I need to hit into his reflection gas to refresh those debuffs and keep them up, that's not the biggest deal in the world, because I'm in control of how much damage I take back. It should just be one heavy. And see, there, that's exactly what I did. It was a significant amount of damage because Reed's pretty well ramped here and he has a pretty solid attack value. So that wasn't ideal, but it felt more safe to just go ahead and refresh the debuffs and not have to worry about whether or not I'd have openings later. But as has been noted before, at this point we are reversing all power gain, so that reverses power snack. It also reversed backup recovery. On top of that, we have all 3 stacks of suppression up, so he's barely gaining any power from hits. Once Reed's set up, if you have a reliable way to land heavy attacks, the fight's basically over. So, one critique of the placement here, the reason that Mr. Negative is dangerous to some is that when you parry him, he gains that light energy, and then when you knock him down, as most champions need to, he turns it into dark and reverses your controls. That's the whole reason to use somebody like Nick or Masacre against him, is that the Disorient gets rid of his energy and makes it so you don't have to deal with the reversed controls. However, on this node, because of One Eye Open and Window of Opportunity, you are strongly discouraged from ever parrying him at all. So the only way that he's going to gain any light energy is if he parries you, you parry one of his special attacks to try and reduce damage instead of just dexing it, or you mess up. So I very much could have used Killmonger here and it would have been fine. Masacre is probably faster just because of his incredible damage output, but the fact is that this placement just kind of makes this a nothing for anyone who can kill without specials. And there are a number of those in the game. So, wouldn't recommend this if you're looking at your own placement. Still, though, two fights that Masacre made look very easy. I'm very much enjoying him. So I did throw on an Indestructible, less for that first fight, although it would be nice just in case I missed one of those evades. I haven't fought negative that many times since he came out. I just wanted to be careful. But more for this Dragon Man. I took this also on Path 9, but on the node where negative is recently, and I'm going to be using the exact same strategy here, which is simply, I'm going to hope he throws the special one, and when he does, I'm going to counter it with a heavy to knock him down and refresh those debuffs from Reed, and I'm going to block at least one hit from the special one, so it gets rid of his power charge. And that's the whole game. Now, the other thing you can do here is that when the window of opportunity is on cooldown, on this node, you actually can parry. And what's more, because you're allowed to stun in general, you can use Human Torch's special too. So you need to be careful with that, but it definitely can come in handy. So that right there, him refusing to throw the special one, is exactly why I had the invulnerability boost on, and why I bothered to use Reed's pre-fights in the first place, because I just didn't want to risk him going to his special 3 and then destroying me. But like I said, because on this node you are allowed to stun in general, you can just finish the fight with that special 2 and Torch is done. But there we go. Bit of a shorter one for me, especially after the last one, but I loved bringing Masacre to war. He was an absolutely perfect counter for both of those fights, and I'm really enjoying how much I'm using Reed this season. Additionally, I want to give a shout out to Campo MC, one of my co-officers in the BG, because he took the lead on planning this one, and we got our first donut this war. We did not die even once as a battle group, and it's been a bit of a running joke slash curse in BG3 here, that for a couple seasons, our most common score was 164, meaning that we died exactly once. And it wasn't usually the same person, it kind of traded around, but as good as that score is, it feels better to not have one person feel like they ruined the donut. And so this was a really fun war. We had a lot of turnover in between seasons. I believe we actually replaced fully 5 people in our battle group, which is just insane in between. You know, there were a couple moves, but mostly people just had to retire. That kind of thing happens, right? Real life gets in the way. But I'm loving the dynamic of the new group. A lot of great guys, you know, really willing to view it as a team effort. And on top of that, obviously they're playing well, if we just made it through a solid defense with nobody dying. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to play with this group. It's been a fantastic season so far. But again, go check out Campo's channel if you want to see this excellent war and several others from another point of view within the same battle group. He's taken some great fights, a lot of them with Elsa, but just in general, and has really great commentary on them. Check them out, and I'm sure it will help you. I will catch y'all next time. Take care.